Before I go any further with this, since what I'm saying sounds kind of fantastic to some people, to a handful of other people, they know what I'm talking about. I thought I should give you a way to demonstrate this to yourself, um, kind of hard evidence for what I'm talking about. And I'm going to be reading a passage here from a book called Are the Kids All Right? That was written in 1981 by John G. Fuller. And ostensibly, this book is about the 1979 Riverfront Coliseum disaster in Cincinnati, which was a Who concert where 11 people were killed by being crushed. His What he's putting forth in this book is that this was kind of the culmination of 15 years of this kind of nihilistic crowd control psychology and in arena rock that was kind of just directed towards oblivion and not any kind of ideals or the the energy in the crowd was being directed in a nihilistic bent, and it was causing all kinds of destruction. This is kind of it's a thing that's not really talked about that much, is all the violence that occurred at these rock concerts, Who concerts, Rolling Stones concerts, just massive riots and some deaths, a lot of deaths actually, ODs, things like that, miscarriages, kind of like an Altamont scene. But Altamont was repeated over and over again. We just don't hear about all those other concerts. Okay, so I'm going to get into this because it's a little lengthy, but this is very interesting, and I really I encourage you to spread what I'm telling you in this video. Maybe not the actual video itself, but demonstrate this for yourself at home. Okay, all right. One unusual study was being conducted by Dr. John Diamond, who had served as staff psychiatrist at New York's Beth Israel Medical Center and as professor of psychiatry at Mount Sinai Medical School. Born in Australia, he founded the Institute of Behavioral Kinesiology that fosters the fusion of psychiatry, psychosomatic medicine, preventive medicine, and a technique called kinesiology. This technique is based on the theory that large muscles provided clues to what was wrong and what could be corrected in the body. Okay, a real simple demonstration of this, and I've had this demonstrated on me before, and I've done it to my friends before. A real simple demonstration of this is take a non-smoker or even a smoker and hold their left arm, ask them to hold their left arm out like this, and then show them press down on their wrist, and they'll have muscle resistance. You'll only be able to push down their arm after you're exerting yourself, right? Put a cigarette in their other hand, and then try it again, and their arm will go straight down. A lot of people don't know about this. It's fascinating, but you can also do this. You can use this to find out what vitamins your body needs, and what he's saying, and what herbs your body needs, whatever your body needs. What he's saying here, what this doctor did was he used music. He did this with music. He would play certain kinds of music and do the same muscle test. Dr. Diamond carried this into the behavioral field. He found that a large body muscle would test weak or strong depending on whether a stimulus was bad or good for both the body and psyche. Some activities or thoughts enriched energy, some depleted energy. A tested muscle could give a feedback that indicated in laboratory tests that the body knew instinctively what was right for the entire self, bypassing the conscious thinking process. In a sense, the tests were a direct route to the id. Several mental hospitals have found the techniques consistent and productive. There were many tests made in the field of music, a favorite area for Dr. Diamond. He liked all types of music, and in his younger days had even promoted a rock concert in Australia on his own. The Beatles were a favorite of his, and he felt that the later rock music made an important social statement. He also found music to be a valuable therapeutic agent for his patients. The right type of music could help create a significant rise in energy level. Beyond his own clinical observations, there was interesting statistical evidence he found in symphony orchestra leaders and musicians. 50% of all males are dead by the age of 70. Among symphony conductors, 80% are not only alive, but are still actively working. In working with musicians, rock, classical, and jazz, he found that muscle resistance tested strong in the playing of classical, early rock and roll, jazz, ethnic, or country music. This is basically folk music, could be subsumed in that, and all what he just said. That's all basically folk music, including Elvis Presley, the Beatles, Bob Dylan, Chuck Berry, and Bill Haley in the Comets. All of this type of music registered a reinforced positive effect on the body, with the body muscle system acting as a gauge for the positive reaction of the mind. One of the tests is simple. The subject holds an arm out straight from the shoulder, parallel to the ground. The subject listens to various types of music. Instructing the subject to tighten his muscles for resistance, Diamond exerts moderate downward pressure on the wrist. If the music's effect on the body is positive, the arm will not budge. The muscle tests strong. If the music has a negative effect, the arm drops to the side under the same amount of pressure, regardless of how hard the subject tries to resist. The loss of strength is instant when a muscle tests weak. Instead of needing 45 pounds of pressure, only 15 is required to lower the arm in most cases. Less than half a minute of exposure to sound is needed for the test. Diamond began testing thousands of recordings over a 3-year period. Most of the music was invigorating. The muscle resistance tested strong. It was only when most of the recordings of the post-Beatles groups were played for a subject that the muscles of the body went weak. Now this gets into something that I'm going to get into later on, which is the effect of the JFK assassination on the populace, how it was a mass trauma on the populace, and then 3 months later, the Beatles are brought to America. So I'm going to be getting into that later on. The Beatles are kind of a segue into this kind of music that he's talking about. The Beatles are kind of, even though they were presented as two opposites that were fighting with each other, the Beatles made it possible for the Rolling Stones to come into the picture, and that's where we really get into the music of weakness and the anti the negative music and the promotion of nihilism. These groups included Led Zeppelin, Janis Joplin, the Rolling Stones, Jim Morrison's The Doors, Alice Cooper, Queen, and others. These groups, defined as rock without the roll, consistently showed the same results: the loss of body energy, the weakening of muscle groups and the thymus, and an overall negative effect that Diamond calls body reversal. To him, the body is saying something that shouldn't be ignored. The results of these tests were so persistent that Diamond went on to try to isolate the cause of the debilitating effect on the body. He analyzed over 20,000 records. With the help of several rock musicians of his acquaintance, he eventually discovered one of the major causes was what he called stopped anapestic beat. This is the beat that you hear in all the new pop music. It's always there. And it was actually used in ancient rituals, ancient temple ceremonies, for like Mithraic temple ceremonies and Baal ceremonies. This was characteristic of rock that came in during the mid-1960s and only rarely before that. The anapestic beat consisted of 2 short beats and 1 long beat, as if the music stopped and had to start again. Rock drummers knew this beat instinctively. It's like the Rolling Stones' Satisfaction, they're using that beat. Dr. Diamond found that this weakening rhythm was apparently counter to the body's normal physiological rhythm. What was notable was that this kind of rock, compared to the forerunner rock and roll, was that which was almost exclusively associated with the violence and destruction at rock concerts, the killing at Altamont, and the drug deaths associated with superstars. Several jazz musicians have died as a result of drugs and alcohol, Diamond says, but it's nothing like the similar deaths on the rock scene, one after the other, some of them even dying in their own vomit. Can you imagine Toscanini or Casal dying that way? In all his clinical studies, Diamond found only 2 instances of classical music that produced the same indications of muscle weakness response. One is at the end of Stravinsky's Rite of Spring, the other is at the conclusion of Ravel's La Valse. In each case, the composer was attempting to convey chaos, and succeeded. Another non-rock case that produced a marked loss of body energy was a short recording of voodoo drum music from Haiti. So this, like I said, this is used in rituals. Mark Grant, a skeptical reporter writing for the Los Angeles Times, set out to contest Diamond's theory. As a musician himself, Grant found the ideas hard to believe. Diamond played a series of rock recordings for him, some with the anapestic beat and some without. He did not tell Grant which type was coming up next. Grant made repeated attempts to resist and counteract the muscle test, but failed every time. Baffled, Grant performed the same test on a volunteer patient in the doctor's waiting room, with the same results. If Diamond is right, Grant observed, a man who would normally bench press 120 pounds would barely be able to press 40 when listening to a song like the Stones' Satisfaction. Diamond has found other factors involved beyond the stopped anapestic beat, which can create the same negative effects even at low volume. At high decibels, the same deleterious effects take place regardless of the rhythm. In other words, the beat plus the noise level plus the newer electronic amplification, including widely used digital recording, has the same clearly documented weakening results. So it's not just the beat, it's the whole technology behind it, the speaker system, the sound system that they're using, which I'll get into later, is also has been developed by the military. As a member of the Royal College of Psychiatry of Great Britain and president of the International Academy of Preventive Medicine, Dr. Diamond was concerned about the broad implications of these results. In many of his patients, he found music had tremendous power to heal, to relieve pain and stress. Some experiments had even shown that the right music reduced bleeding. To find that hard rock music caused the measurable loss of the body's life energy was discouraging. In his mind, there was little question that the new rock, not the old, reinforced negative energy, having a serious sociological impact in view of its intense popularity among millions of young people. As Dr. Diamond continued his studies, other troubling evidence appeared. His clinical studies revealed that only the new rock music disturbed the symmetry of the right and left cerebral hemispheres. This in turn causes stress and subtle perceptual difficulties that result in restlessness, decreased work output, hyperactivity, and the loss of energy for no apparent reason. Beyond that, extended listening to the new rock music began to show that there was a complete reversal in what Diamond calls body morality. And this is kind of what I'm getting at here. The normal beliefs of a subject or patient could be switched entirely by exposure to the music for as little as 1 or 2 minutes. With rock fans listening to recordings for hours at a time to the point of addiction, this was another disturbing signal. Diamond tested for this reversal in beliefs by using the same shoulder deltoid muscle test he had used for brief exposure to the music. He designed a series of simple and obvious questions to ask the subject from both positive and negative points of view. Under normal conditions for practically everyone, the shoulder muscles would test strong when the patient was asked to say out loud, "I want to love people and life. I want to be healthy. I want to live. I want to be good in my studies. I want to be strong. I want to be happy. I want to be well liked," and so forth. Also, under normal conditions, practically everyone would test weak on the same muscle tests if asked to say out loud the opposing statements to the above. I want to hate life and people. I want to be sick. I want to die. I want to fail in my studies. I want to be weak. I want to be miserable. I want to be hated. But the same subjects exposed to a few minutes of the new rock music showed a startling reversal. Their muscles tested uniformly weak for positive statements and uniformly strong for the negative ones. The findings were so consistent that Dr. Diamond felt convinced that they were incontrovertible. If so, they would indicate without ambiguity why the new rock would lead to the violence and disturbances, and even a death wish, that were plaguing the hard rock scene from the mid-60s on. So, he goes on here and gives a more detailed directions on how to perform this, and I'll make a little video at the end of this. I have to stop now because I'm almost at 15 minutes, but this is very interesting, isn't it? I encourage you to try this at home. Okay, do this on yourself at home to see what I'm talking about and to prove to yourself what I'm talking about. And I really wish more people would watch these videos, but I guess every YouTuber wishes that, right? But this is important information here, folks. It really gets into the music of today because they are using that anapestic beat. Okay, they're using that almost exclusively. Okay, so So I'll put another video out there, and he gives a little more detailed way of performing this. So thanks, guys.